My aunt's perfect son always mocked me. Still driving that junk? Maybe someday you'll have a real job like me. At Thanksgiving, he learned I owned the company he'd applied to. I pulled out his application, smiled, and tore it in half. His mom screamed. In my family, worth was a costume. Whoever looked the part got the praise. My cousin Blake wore that costume perfectly. Polished shoes, smug grin, and a vocabulary full of buzzwords he barely understood. Aunt Sandra's golden boy, the walking embodiment of success. Me? I was Daniel, the quiet cousin. The one who drove the same old Civic, didn't flash anything, didn't brag. To them, I was the dependable disappointment, the background character in Blake's highlight reel. What they didn't know was that the little tech thing I'd started in college had turned into a multi-million-dollar company. I owned it quietly. I didn't need their applause, I just worked. But Blake couldn't resist the spotlight. At every family dinner, every holiday, he'd raise a glass and smirk across the table. "Still fixing computers, Danny boy?" he'd say, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Maybe someday you'll have a real job like me." Sandra would always laugh too hard, like she was rehearsing for an audience. I used to bite my tongue, tell myself it wasn't worth it. But something shifted last Thanksgiving. Between bites of turkey and Blake's endless monologues about corporate strategy, he turned to me. "Hey, you hiring?" he said casually. "I'm thinking of trying something new. Startups are hot right now. Coding and stuff." I almost choked on my drink. "What kind of role?" He shrugged. "Something high level, leadership maybe." "I've got people skills." Sandra chimed in immediately. "You'd be lucky to have him, Daniel. Maybe put in a word with your boss?" I smiled. "Sure, I'll see what I can do." What they didn't know was that Blake had already applied. HR sent me his resume 2 days earlier, a bland list of half-finished jobs and inflated titles. He hadn't even made it past screening. I didn't reject it. I saved it. Fast forward a month. Christmas dinner. Sandra's house gleamed like a magazine spread. Candles, polished silver, everything curated for appearances. "Daniel!" she beamed when I walked in. "You made it on time. That's progress." Blake appeared behind her, champagne in hand. "Danny boy, still driving that Civic? Guess some habits die hard?" "Still runs better than your ego," I wanted to say, but instead I smiled. "Still runs fine." The night played out like a bad rerun. Sandra gushed about Blake's upcoming promotion. Blake bragged about new opportunities in tech. "Oh really?" I asked. He nodded proudly. "Yep, got an interview lined up with this big firm. Cutting-edge company. Might even be one of yours, Daniel." Sandra added. "We're all so proud. He's really turning things around." I just smiled, feeling the moment ripen like fruit about to fall. Halfway through dinner, while Sandra bragged about imported wine and Blake pretended to understand stocks, I set down my fork and reached into my briefcase. "Hey Blake," I said casually. "You ever seen this before?" He frowned as I slid a folder across the table. He opened it, his face drained of color. "What the hell?" "It's your application," I said evenly, "to my company." The table went silent. Forks froze midair. Sandra blinked. "That's impossible. He applied to some startup months ago." I met her eyes. "Not some startup, mine." Blake's jaw dropped. You're the CEO?" I nodded. "Have been for years." Sandra's face turned red. "You mean you knew this whole time and said nothing?" "I figured you'd reveal yourselves eventually," I said. Blake tried to recover. "You think this is funny?" "Not really," I said quietly, "but it's honest." Then I picked up the folder, his resume, his cover letter, the one where he called himself a visionary leader, and tore it in half. The sound cut through the room. Sandra gasped. "How dare you humiliate him like this?" I met her glare. I didn't humiliate anyone. I just stopped pretending. Blake sat frozen, hands trembling, mouth opening and closing like he was trying to find words that didn't exist. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and said calmly, "Blake, I genuinely hope you find something that fits, but next time you lie about getting hired somewhere, make sure the CEO isn't sitting at your table." I left before anyone could speak. Outside, the air was sharp and clean, the night unnervingly quiet. Behind me, I could still hear Sandra's voice breaking, the clatter of dishes, and the sound of Blake's perfect image collapsing in real time. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. I felt free.